wrestling fans, and welcome to the Wrestle Talk Podcast. For the next 2 hours, we will bring you the latest pro wrestling news, in-depth analysis of all your favorite promotions from across the globe, and much, much more. We will also bring you exclusive interviews with the greatest professional wrestling personalities on the local, national, and international levels. If you want to follow the Wrestle Talk Podcast, check us out online at www.wrestletalkpodcast.com. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. And now, it's time for the reigning, defending, undisputed leader in pro wrestling podcast, the Wrestle Talk Podcast.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 469 of the Wrestle Talk Podcast, right here on all forms of social media. As you just saw here moments ago, our featured guest is already in the house this evening. Jaysin Static will be joining us here in a little over an hour to talk all things professional wrestling here in the St. Louis area, as well as his brand new wrestling school, which we're going to have an opportunity to speak to him about right here on the program tonight. We got a lot of great things going on, a lot of big things in the world of professional wrestling, whether you're talking about New Japan, you're talking about AEW, you're talking about TNA, and of course you're talking about the WWE as they're on the road to WrestleMania. We're going to have all those great big things to talk about here tonight on the program, right here on the Wrestle Talk Podcast. Again, as a reminder, if you want to be a part of the program live, make it a point to send us a message right here on the program. We'll try to get your messages up here as quickly as we can, so that we can share the information to you and make sure that we keep everybody involved right here tonight with the Wrestle Talk Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we're going to go ahead and thank our great sponsor. We got a shout out here to Susie Haas before we move to our sponsors here this evening. Thank you for the shout out here, Susie. Like I said, we got a lot of great things going on here tonight. We're going to go ahead and talk about our great sponsors here on the Wrestle Talk Podcast before we get too much farther along. We're going to go ahead and get those running here right now. Royal Mills Transportation, Noble Men's Barber Lounge, Kansas City, Kincaid Arcade at the Oak Park Mall, our good friends at Interstate 70 Sports Media, Little Popeye Designs, home of those great Wrestle Talk Podcast tumblers, and the FWWC, the world's premier fantasy wrestling group, which you can catch right here on all these great media outlets every Thursday evening. Got a great night of professional wrestling here. Also, as a reminder, hashtag WTP, hashtag Let's Talk Wrestling right here on the Wrestle Talk Podcast. We're going to have a great show here tonight. I'm going to be joined by my broadcast colleague here in just a few moments. Again, as a reminder, if you have anybody that you want to watch the program here tonight, make it a point to share us to all your friends. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on YouTube, you name it. We're all over the internet when it comes to the best in professional wrestling right here every Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central on the Wrestle Talk Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got a lot of great stuff here tonight. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and check here real quick. We are having a slight technical issue. I mean, that's, again, the wonders of modern technology and bringing you the best in professional wrestling from coast to coast right here. We got a lot of great things going on. And joining me for momentarily here is a man I had an opportunity to spend last Saturday with. And we're going to take just a moment here to bring him in. Road Dogg, I know you're here. You're roaming around here in the catacombs of the Wrestle Talk Podcast family. I got to ask you, brother, you were there Saturday night, Edwardsville, Illinois, the Beast in his final journey taking on Iorio at CHWA. I got to ask you your thoughts on that matchup this past Saturday night.
Iorio went splat.
And fans, just to let you know, if you have an opportunity and you catch anything online from CHWA this past weekend, I'm going to tell you right now, Chris is not joking. I've only seen the Beast pull out that maneuver on a couple of occasions. And again, it looked like you needed a spatula to pull him off the mat, man. When he got hit hard, and there was no way to describe it other than just ow.
Yeah, it was a good crowd. We had a really good crowd in Edwardsville. It was a whole lot of fun. That was actually, I believe, that might be one of your first CHWA shows being at. You had the pleasure of reffing the Jeremy Lightfoot match, who will be a guest later on, coming in the coming weeks. You had the pleasure of actually getting in the ring for the first time in a long time.
Well, that is true, Chris. And I mean, again, I want to thank the fine folks at CHWA for giving me the opportunity to be in the ring. And again, Jeremy Lightfoot has not missed a beat. The man is still a phenomenal in-ring competitor. I will say this, Cardi Marty was his opponent. And when he threw that chop on Jeremy Lightfoot, I think Jeremy realized that the next generation is well on their way. I mean, he turned around and you could tell he thought to himself, maybe this is a little more than I signed up for.
Yeah. Cardi was kind of like, after he sent the chop and Lightfoot just looked at him, he's like, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe that was a mistake.
I totally agree with you, Chris. But I mean, again, from top to bottom, a great night of professional wrestling action. And also, Chris, you got to put this out here. We got a comment here. Know this man very well. Michael Anthony Morris joining us here on the program. An amazing night, hands down. CHWA always puts on a great show. And I got to tell you, I agree with Michael here 100%. First time I've been to CHWA in a long time. Had an opportunity to speak with a lot of the competitors. Also had an opportunity, and Chris, I'm going to level with you. Luke Roberts, always a step ahead of everything. I actually had a couple of very nice discussions, let's put it that way, with CHWA management. And who knows, maybe you might see Luke Roberts in a CHWA ring again in the future. Who knows?
And I think the best part of that night was the return of Chris Exodus. Actually, he was he was there. He came back. He's been fighting an injury. He had a triple hernia surgery. Three of them. It was only going to go in for 2, but they found the third one as they were exploring. So,
well, I can tell you right now, Chris, and I mean, again, I don't mean any disrespect to the CHWA champion, Chris Exodus, but to me, this is a very questionable call. I know that he wanted to get back at Aleister Crowe. I know there's a lot of headaches going on with things along those lines. But it's one of those things of where, to me, I don't know if Chris Exodus is at 100%. I really don't. His injury is one of those that a lot of wrestlers don't come back from. A lot of athletes in general don't come back from. And, I mean, again, while he managed to get a little bit of payback this past Saturday night, I'm going to tell you right now, I wonder how Chris Exodus is going to be having to go 5, 10, 15 minutes, because Aleister Crowe, before Chris Exodus got there, he ran down a pretty long list of people that he had proven himself against.
Yep. It's going to be a very interesting time. Very, very, very interesting time. But you know what? We would be remiss if we didn't do our normal tradition here where we honor this great country of ours, the United States of America, with the rendition, everyone's favorite rendition of the national anthem. So if you're wearing any kind of hat, where we ask that you please remove it as we honor the country with the singing of our national anthem.
Hey, Chris, I got to tell you right now, thinking about our good friend Joe Lance, it brings a tear to my eye every time that we have this. And Susie, I totally agree with you. Earplugs might be needed for that rendition. But again, I also want to give a shout out to all of our great first responders and those who were joining us. Oh, speaking of joining us,
the Doctor of Decadence, Dr. Dallas Stevens, who's going to be a part of MMWA this Saturday. But apparently he's still wearing it. He's having to wear that until he wins the match down there at Broadway. He's going to have to wear that beautiful blonde wig.
That is true. That is true, Chris. And like I said, he's one half of the Junkies for Fame, a great tag team. Competed in MMWA. I believe they competed this past weekend at CHWA.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact they've competed with several other promotions as well. Again, great competitor. Again, didn't get the W this past Saturday, but
yeah, it's going to be. It's a great time at St. I mean, we brought it up last week. I believe me and Renee were talking about it, and talk about all the really good wrestling that's in Missouri, with not even just this area, not even just St. Louis, but you got WLW down there in Troy, who had a great show this past week, and they're going to have their Night of Champions coming up soon. It's going to be the NWA versus WLW, so they're bringing in some of the NWA stars.
You know, one thing, Chris, you're talking about WLW. We also got to give a shout out to our good friend Tootie Lynn Ramsey, the Little Blue Dragon, winning the WLW Women's Championship this past weekend. And from my understanding, they got joined by Cameron Burnett making a return to WLW,
right,
and making her intentions known that she wants to be in the consideration for that WLW Women's Championship. And I got to tell you, I would pay good money for that matchup. I really would.
Mm-hmm.
I had the opportunity to referee a match of Cameron's in Kansas City against Stormy Renee, and I'll tell you right now, Cameron Burnett is going to come back with all sorts of energy, all sorts of fire. And I'm going to tell you right now, Chris, I really, truly wonder how long it's going to be before somebody like a TNA, like an AEW, an MLW would pick up a Cameron Burnett, because they would be crazy not to.
And just think, she's not coming back just as the old Cameron Burnett. She's coming back with a few extra tricks she's learned down there at the Performance Center. So
yeah, as she said, Chris, 3 years of experience down there in the NXT world, and again, that's a lot of information.
We got a Junkies for Fame fan in the house, or an amazing tag team, but they were not able to stop the Brothers of DNX this past Saturday. And Dallas Steven weighs in. He's facing Wyatt Tresh this Sunday, or this Saturday, down in MMWA. So he's got to win to lose that wig. I mean,
well, you know something, Chris? I got to tell you, Dallas Stevens had the right idea. I managed to follow social media, and I'm going to tell you right now, I had an opportunity. I saw he actually made a road trip to Wyatt Tresh's hometown
of Cooter, Missouri.
Very true, very true. And a matter of fact, if you go to his Facebook feed, you're going to see that this is not a joke. He actually drove there to try to get information, to try to get the scoop on Wyatt Tresh. And I'm going to tell you, that is, again, he is the doctor for a reason. He knows exactly what it takes to get the W. And I'm going to go on a limb here, and I'm going to say right now, after this Saturday, the streak will be broken, the wig will be retired, and Dallas Stevens will go back to being, as you said, was it the Doctor of Decadence?
Doctor of Decadence.
I think that's definitely something that's going to be there after this Saturday night at MMWA.
Yep. So, all right. Well, Luke, I guess we're going to go ahead. Let's go ahead and keep rolling on as we wait for Gabe to join us. Hopefully he can join us. He's down there in Florida, so he's got that Florida Wi-Fi. So
that is true. That is true.
But you know what? You want to go ahead and let's knock out some high spots, and let's talk. I mean, it's not like there's anything to really talk about in the wrestling world, right?
Never.
No. And so
never.
So I'm gonna go ahead and fire up some DJ Money, and we'll
DJ Money.
We'll go from there.
Mic check. Yeah. All right. Wrestle Talk Podcast. DJ Money. Yeah. Let's go. Welcome to High Spots, where we pop news like clear shots. We talk shop, coming through the screens of a laptop. And non-stop like a runner speakers of blacktop. We hit hard like chair shots and backdrops. Like a clock flash, look like a belly flop. Now that's on. We up to speed while they stay slow. Wrestle Talk Podcast. Now they know we about to start the show.
All right, DJ Money bringing us in here to the High Spot segment. Going to throw some more messages out here. First of all, want to give a shout out here, and we're actually ahead of the game. TNA's Hammerstone was at WDWA, and again, we're going to talk about that a little bit later on. I know some of our Russell Talk podcast family was going to be at that event. Also, ladies and gentlemen, we would be remiss here as we're going to go here. You kind of know the story. You know that the Night Owl, you know Sonny Money Mayo, you know the CEO. They're all hyped up. Their Kansas City Chiefs, yet again, pull off a Super Bowl victory. And again, I'll give them props. They did win the Super Bowl. Good job, Kansas City.
And tomorrow is the parade down there in Kansas City.
Something, Chris? I have a feeling that the mayor of Kansas City needs to follow the lead back in the day of my wonderfully beloved Chicago Cubs and needs to basically call tomorrow a citywide holiday, because that's going to be the mother of all celebration. It's going to be huge. There's going to be people all over the place. Had an opportunity to talk to the CEO. He was talking about how wild and crazy it was Sunday, and I don't think it stopped.
Oh, they probably haven't stopped partying since the what am I trying to say? Since the Super Bowl ended. I mean,
well, you know something, Chris, as we see right here, the Night Owl talking about Mayor Q. I'm going to level with you. I'm not huge on my Kansas City politics, but again, if the Night Owl's getting the info, he's getting the scoop, you know something's going on in the world of pro wrestling.
So which float is Renee going to be on in when we look at the the parade? Is he going to be riding in the Travis Kelce float or whatever, the bus? I don't know. I forget what they do. Some places do buses, some do convertibles. I mean, I don't know, but either way, it's going to be a good time. Congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs and to all our Kansas City friends. I know through wrestling we have a whole family that are in that area. So,
hey, Chris, I think the message from the Night Owl pretty much summarizes the last several months in Kansas City. Right here, as we can see, Wrestle Talk podcast. I know they're going to be in full effect tomorrow at that parade to recognize, I believe it's now the 3 or the 4 time. There's a lot of times. Three-time champions. I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs. Who can blame them?
Honestly, until someone can beat Mahomes in the playoffs, then I mean, there's not really else much you can say about it. I mean,
that is true. That is true. I also want to give a shout out to our good friend Jim Harris, one of the members and one of the executives of the St. Louis Independent Wrestling Hall of Fame. They just announced over the past 2 days their class of 2024. We're going to look at that on a future episode of the program. I know that Big Jim Harris and I have been already in communications of hopefully getting some of this year's inductees here on the Wrestle Talk podcast. Again, it's going to be a great time. You know something, Chris? I know that we talked about it earlier, but I'm just to a point right now, I think we would break the randomizer because of how much stuff is going on right now in the world of pro wrestling. So I think for tonight, I think for High Spots, we just need to throw up a topic and start going, because our fans, our viewers, our listeners, the Wrestle Talk podcast family are going to be throwing all these different things up here. And again, let's just throw one up there. We'll flip a coin. We'll do whatever we need to do. We'll just go ahead and throw one up here. And right off the bat, we've got a big question here. Is Scott D'Amore's TNA removal as TNA president bring their recent momentum to a halt? And I'm going to tell you right now, Chris, if you would have told me 8 hours ago, I would have had a completely different opinion. To me, when I was listening today to the radio on my way to work, I'm going to tell you right now, I think this is a huge mistake for TNA. And the reason why is, and I'm just going to throw it this way, several people have said that this new president is a television guy. He's all about media. He's all about things to make the product look better or seem better. No, Scott D'Amore was worried about making the wrestling better. And I'll tell you right now, this is a lot like, and again, our guest here chiming in, well, big mistake by Anthem Sports. It's one of those where when you take the wrestling out of professional wrestling, there's a big problem. And I think right now, TNA, again, they were talking about Robert Evans, they're talking about Tommy Dreamer, talking about Gail Kim. They got a lot of great people behind TNA, but I think losing Scott D'Amore is going to be a huge problem, both now and in the future for TNA.
Do you think it brings down the morale of TNA at all after they basically reset themselves? And now I guess we haven't seen what's happening because we're still, I would assume we're still under the tapings of the old regime. Scott D'Amore apparently wanted to spend more money than what the Anthem people wanted to use, because apparently they wanted to bring in Braun Strowman back when he was a free agent. But I mean, Scott D'Amore is a brilliant business mind, and if Tony Khan is smart, and this is just saying, if Tony Khan is smart, he would try to hire Scott D'Amore to potentially help out with his creative, because I mean,
you know something, Chris? I want to take something here real quick. And just because our fans have been wanting to ask about it, to give you an idea, as we play the randomizer, and yes, we know the randomizer works. When it comes down to it, I think it's more of an idea of who is going to hire Scott D'Amore first. I know that AEW is going to want to throw a large amount of money at him. I do believe if you look at the WWE, you've got Joseph Park, you've got I believe Daivari, you've got countless others that have been a part, Nick Aldis, who have been a part of TNA. And I'll tell you right now, AEW could throw him a lot of money. WWE could throw him a lot of money. You could see, I mean, what another one, I just want to throw this one here, Chris. Don't throw him into AEW, throw him into Ring of Honor.
Maybe.
Imagine what a Scott D'Amore for a Ring of Honor or an MLW could do.
Well, just imagine what Scott D'Amore could do with an AEW sized budget. I mean, he's not going to be out of work long.
Oh no, he's not. I mean,
I don't think he's a fit for the WWE.
Wait a minute. I'm going to back this up here, Chris. You're saying Scott D'Amore is not a fit for the WWE? They got Chris Parks. They've got Abyss. I rest my case.
I don't think he would. I don't think at this time, because they've got so many of them. Renee makes a good point. The NWA could use a shot in the arm. I mean,
that is true. That is true. I mean, that's a lot of things here, Chris. I think it's going to be one of those whoever, and again, who knows? Does he have a no compete from the words? And I go back to something that Bully Ray said when I was listening to my radio today. They said he was terminated. He wasn't released. He was terminated. So the question is, do they have a no compete clause in case? Because that's a very gray area. Mm-hmm. So only time's going to tell. But I'm going to tell you right now, I think we're both in agreement. TNA losing Scott D'Amore is a big problem.
Yeah, I mean, it really, truly is. It's freaking nuts. I mean, that news kind of just came out as a complete shock when I saw it. I'm like, I legit was like sitting there reading the tweet, and I was like, really? I hope nothing. First thing that every time something like that happens, first thing you go is you hope that nothing there's no like scandal that came with it, because we're in this world where everything's got to be a scandal. So
that's true. That is true, Chris. Well, like I said, that on any given week would be right up at the top of the Wrestle Talk podcast high spot segment.
Right.
But that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of things going on. So real quick here, just to make the listeners happy, just to make certain individuals who are partying in Kansas City happy, we're going to go ahead and hit the randomizer. Ooh. Chris, we got to throw this one up here because this one I know we had a lot of discussions about in the office. Got to throw this one up here.
I thought I put a question in there. Maybe it didn't save. It was something about did the ending go too far? I can't find the question. Maybe
hold on here. I know we've got it in here. That's not a problem because I know that's been brought up by a lot of people here, and we're going to bring up.
There
you go. Technology is great when it cooperates.
I'm half blind. Okay, that's why I wear glasses for.
Okay, do you think that the Young Bucks went over the line on AEW Dynamite? Chris, I'm going to let you start because I've got an opinion. It's going to be a little bit different than what you would think of me.
Do I think it went too far? No, because it's a wrestling angle. I mean, I've said this time and time and time again. AEW leans into the blood too often, and I've always been this person that if you're gonna use blood, it's got to make sense, and it's got to be for a purpose. It's not just on a random opening match of a collision that you should be spewing buckets of blood. It kind of works here to kind of try to get the Bucks over as evil, but I still don't know why the Bucks are Sting's last opponent. I don't know why, and I also don't know why you needed to give Sting the tag belts. I mean, I know it's something Tony wanted to do, but just I don't get it. I don't understand that. That's just me. I could be wrong, but that's
something, Chris. I'm gonna go on a completely different tangent here, and I'm gonna call on my wrestling history. And that going to two individuals I've had the opportunity of being in the ring with, that being Tyler Black, Seth Rollins, for those that know him in the WWE, and our good friend Jimmy Jacobs, a man that you've had the opportunity to share the ring with as well. And 4 words, age of the fall. Now, a lot of people are going to say, Luke, where are you going with this? Hear me out. To me, when the age of the fall took out the Briscoe brothers, and you see Jimmy Jacobs standing underneath, and I want to say it was Mark, but again, I could be wrong. Standing underneath Mark Briscoe, literally bleeding buckets of blood and just being covered in his opponent's blood. To me, I think that was taking it too far over the line. But in this case here, I think it's one of those where this is giving me a lot of things. This is kind of taking to me, I'd say a little bit of Age of the Fall, a little bit of The Righteous. Long and short is Renee's bringing it out here. Basically, for those, again, spoiler alert for those of you who didn't catch last week's AEW Dynamite, Sting and Darby Allin win the AEW Tag Team Championships from Big Bill and Absolute Ricky Starks. Sting's sons are in the audience. Everybody's happy. The confetti goes. The champions are crowned. There's not a dry eye in the house, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, as you see this picture here,
this was the final. This was the final scene of Dynamite last week.
Yes, as you can see here, no longer Matt and Nick. It's now Matthew and Nicholas Jackson. And I got to tell you right now, to me, this is one of those situations here, Chris. And again, thank you, Renee, for the comment as you brought it up here on the program. I'm going to tell you right now, to me, you're going to find this weird, Chris. It's a combination between the Age of the Fall, The Righteous, and a little bit, to me, of a Shawn Michaels from WrestleMania. I think right now, while a lot of people don't get why Sting is one half of the AEW Tag Team Champions, you got to admit the man still got it. I really think that the Young Bucks are using the EDP card. And to me, while I see what's here, I don't see what Matthew and Nicholas Jackson get from this. I don't. You need somebody that would really deserve it. And to me, I would rather see the match we would have had Big Bill and Absolute Ricky Starks at Revolution. I would have loved to have seen the idea of maybe having FTR, having them compete against Darby and Sting. There's a lot of great tag teams in AEW that could have gained a lot more credibility, gained a lot more merit by facing the now AEW Tag Team Champions. And to me, I really think that, well, I get it. I agree with you, Chris. There's a lot of better teams that could have had the spot.
Yeah, I just don't get why the Bucks were the final. I mean, if anything, I would like Sting to go out having a one-on-one match with Darby. Now I know Sting, he's up in age, so maybe that's why he's had so many tag matches. It's to kind of hide it, but I mean, Sting's going to go all out for his final match. So, and let's just all say, we're glad this last match does not have Ric Flair involved in anything physically. Let's just say that we're happy about that, right?
I would agree. I think that, and see, that's the other thing too. When's the last time we saw Ric Flair with Sting?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen Ric Flair at all lately. So,
well, we've seen lots of Woo Energy.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a sponsor. That's the official energy drink of AEW.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, again, that's where we're looking at things here. But again, we do want to give a shout out Darby Allin, Sting, brand new AEW World Tag Team Champions, and again, another notch on the belt of the Stinger. And I'm gonna tell you right now, Chris, and I know it's not gonna happen. I know it's not there, but a lot of people are hoping that when we see him at Revolution, maybe we could see the old Sting one more time. Get away from the crow look, go to the bleach blonde hair, go to the super short hair, see what it is. I don't think we're going to get it, but again,
I don't think so either, but it's still a good thing. So, well, we still got a little bit of time. Jimmy Harris is in these guys are not where they used to be and need to bow out gracefully, but go out in style and be and on top of their game. And you know what? And leave the business and leave the wrestling business a little bit better than you when you came in, right?
That is true. It's one of those where, and I know a lot of people have heard the phrase when you're leaving a promotion or leaving your career. I mean, it's one of those you'd love to go out on top. But in honesty, it's always been one where when your last match is there, more often not that you're looking at the lights.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of those where when it comes down to it, I think that we're not going to see the perfect record in AEW. But I mean, again, it's one of those where Sting and Darby Allin are going to have a pretty uphill climb. We'll find out more this Wednesday on Dynamite.
Yes, that is exactly true. Well, we got some time. We still got some time. We'll go ahead and fire up that randomizer one more time.
Hold on. We're gonna make sure that it's there. Hold on. Let me see if I can get this right. Is that it?
Randomizer. I don't quite know what that was.
All right, our next question here. We talked about the Young Bucks. Let's move on to our next question. And wow, this is kind of a cool graphic here, Chris.
Yes.
Right now, we have The Rock. We have Roman Reigns.
Actually, that's the question. That's the question, because this is all from the WrestleMania 40 press conference in Las Vegas, and we sat on the show last week. Myself, Haas, and Renee. We were talking about this press conference. We were like, "Well, why is it in Vegas?" Well, the Super Bowl is in Vegas, so you got all the people there. I'm like, but Vegas has nothing to do with WWE this year. Okay, well, maybe they're going to announce WrestleMania 41 in Vegas. Well, they didn't do that, but they did give us some stuff to talk about. I mean...
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'll tell you right now, Chris, things that I took from this conference. Number one, looking at the entire bloodline of the Samoan dynasty.
It took up the whole screen.
I know, and again, it's up to, so-and-so. No, the family lineage of the Samoan dynasty is, I mean, pretty much a who's who. If you follow the WWE in the last probably 50 years, it was there. To give you an idea, too, I think that taking the jab back at the High Chief, I think the jab at the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, were both good. And I want to share something here real quick. And again, I'm thankful for our guest being here a little bit early. We know he's in the green room. He was talking about the media presser. And I'm going to tell you right now, having an opportunity to look at the crowd, this was just a media presser.
And it wasn't announced very much further ahead of time. It was only announced like a couple of days ahead of time. So it was just like these people just showed up randomly. I mean, yes, they were probably already in town because, the Super Bowl was in Vegas. So, there was a lot to do there. But, I mean, the whole press conference was laid out pretty good. I enjoyed the whole Rhea and Becky stuff. But when Seth came out and did his thing and was wearing his bow ties on his shoes, and when
don't mock the visionary. Don't mock the revolutionary. That was, to me, that's what made the whole presser. You know that I am a very fascist, fashion-conscious man.
You are not I have seen the way you dress. You are not fashion conscious.
Well, you know something? I got to tell you right now. If we had the scale, there would be 5 super kicks when it comes to Seth Rollins' outfit at the presser. It's one of those right now that was absolutely perfect.
And then Roman coming out whenever he was announcing Cody Rhodes, and Roman coming out, and then let's just be honest. You know that Roman and Seth are really good. You could tell that they're really good friends because they're going in on each other, but they're not they're not like taking deep personal. I mean, the line about it is like
taking a shot at the legacy of the American Dream. Taking a shot at the High Chief, the man who was at the very top of the Samoan dynasty, and they're not taking shots at each other?
I was talking about Cody and Roman and Seth at this time. I haven't gotten to Cody. Hasn't come out. Cody was the last one to come out, and he didn't even get any music. He just walked out on stage saying the stuff was bullshit. I mean,
dude, it's one of those right now, Chris, when you look at this, just the sheer magnitude of this. I mean, it's unreal as to what all was going on here. I mean, again, you had Triple H. I believe Aldis and Pierce were both there. You could have had an entire platoon of Las Vegas's finest.
Mm-hmm.
And an interesting thing that I heard too, and they showed it last night on Monday Night Raw.
Oh, did you see the trailer for WrestleMania? Did you see? Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, no. I was referring to what they were talking about for Friday night. Oh. When The Rock and Roman Reigns tell Triple H. Yeah, and again, I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, but as we see with what's there right now, I mean, again, we're going to see some big name consequences here. And speaking of which, we're going to throw it out there to our good friend Nightmare Jones checking in this evening, wanting to see Roman and Cody. And that is very much true, Nightmare Jones. I think a lot of people, I mean, again, The Rock talking about the Cody crybabies and all that kind of stuff. But in reality,
it's going to be interesting to see what they do, because I think where my mind is now going, this wasn't where my mind was going at first. I thought that Cody would they would do something and then move it down the line for Cody to win, maybe at SummerSlam, so you get Hogan, or so you get Roman to beat Hogan's record. But then I got to thinking, and then whenever this on Thursday, what happened, I was like, boy, they just kind of threw everything into just like a complete tizzy, because they kind of just like The Rock, they kind of flipped The Rock right there. And are we gonna get a tag match on night 1, and then and then you get Cody and Roman on night 2, and then maybe Mania 41 in Vegas, if that's where they're going to have it. They haven't announced it yet, but allegedly that's what they're going for Mania next year. Have do the Rock Roman thing there. I mean,
we talked about what Susie Haas wants. She wants The Rock and Cody. And you know something, Chris? I can see realistically that if we ever got that match, do you think it's time, so to speak, for The Rock to do for Cody what Hogan did for him at WrestleMania?
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, there's so many layers. There are so many layers to this whole story. I mean, there's even talk that the WWE and AEW has been talking about maybe loaning some video of Sting when he was in WCW, and maybe with a chance of an appearance of a Dustin Rhodes in WWE. I mean, that would be cool. I mean, I don't know. I mean, things are very interesting in the wrestling world right now.
Well, you know something, Chris? I want to throw one more little thing out here. You want to talk about things being interesting here in the world of professional wrestling. You want to talk about things being interesting. I think we're going to have one more little additional piece because they've seen our faces for a long time. I want to go ahead and bring in a man who's very well known to the Wrestle Talk podcast family. He's been a member of the family for a long time. I don't think we've seen him for a couple weeks, but I really want to hear what this man has to say here. Here's what's up. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, Big Daddy P. We're not going to give him his formal intro. We're going to do that in just a minute. But Big Daddy P, let's go ahead and bring him in.
We'll give him his theme song. He gets it. Oh, you stopped it.
I didn't touch it.
Maybe I accidentally did. Damn it, Gremlin. Damn it, the Gremlins are working again on this. Big Daddy P, how you been? We haven't seen you in forever.
Oh, man. And life is interesting. But I'm so glad to see you guys. I'm glad you sent me this link. And the topic that you're talking about is on the minds that everyone wants to know. What is WWE going to do and is doing? And you can't blame Vince anymore.
Right.
Right. We control. So now, poor Hunter, he's got to take the brunt of all the junk, which is totally, but it's funny. See, one of the things about leadership that's important is to be a good leader, you have to be a good servant. And because Triple H has served, and because The Rock has served, and because Hulk Hogan and Bruno Sammartino, now we're upset because we don't know what they're going to do. So I want to give them props because now we are not guessing anymore. Now we have to wait. And it's about time they've done this. I think this is the most creative direction they've gone in over 25 years. I mean, I'm excited because, again, we have 2 nights of WrestleMania. 2 nights. Now, everybody wants Cody to finish the story, including Cody. The thing is, where's he going to go if he finishes his story? How much higher can he go?
I mean, and they always say the chase is, they say when you're putting together a show, the chase is always, someone chasing a championship is always more interesting than someone just getting a champ. You know what I mean?
And one of the champions, the belt. Now, this is what I don't know, and this is where I'm confused. And I'm sure one of or both of you know the answer to this. Dusty never won the World Heavyweight Championship, or did he?
No. Well,
not in the WWF.
So not the one Cody's holding.
Or the one Cody's chasing. No, not the one.
No, I'm sorry. Seth is holding.
Seth is
the one that Seth is holding. Who's injured, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here's everybody going, look over here at Roman at a belt that I don't even think Roman wants anymore. So what are they going to do? And it's a great question.
And you know what? We're just at the beginning of this whole WrestleMania kind of story. We're kind of going up the roller coaster. But I mean, we still got several weeks and we still got Elimination Chamber. So we got so much other stuff to go. And especially Roman and Rock are going to be on SmackDown this week. So
the big hint that everybody's been saying is it's a slow roll. Mm-hmm. None of this. Remember what Paul Heyman said? What inning are we in?
Yeah, well, he
said the 3rd inning.
Right. I wonder what it.
Now, is Roman interested in beating Hogan's record?
I mean,
because if he
It'd
is,
be a great accomplishment.
well, who's he beaten so far? I mean, where would he be on the list? Number 5?
well, yeah, because you're never going to beat Bruno's record, or you're never going to get beat. Probably you're never going to beat Bruno's record.
How about Bob Backlund's?
I don't know. I don't have the effect, but I know that if that Roman could pass if he gets to SummerSlam, he would pass Hogan. So,
well, I think we're first of all, and based upon the stories that have taken place up to this point, and especially with everything going on with Vince and everything going on with Laurinaitis and Brock Lesnar, okay, and all that junk, which nobody wants to talk about only because they don't want to be indicted. That's why they don't want to talk about it. Because are you trying to tell me that a lot of people now? What's crazy is all the accusations that are being discussed are based on right after COVID.
mm-hmm.
Not 20 years ago, 2 years ago. And just because Endeavor is bought out and it's new ownership, that's why they keep saying that the new WWE. It's new in it that the ownership has changed, but it's still the same formula.
Yeah, I mean the formula of professional wrestling really is never good. I mean, is it really ever going to change completely? I mean, it's still going to be two people in the ring and you know, I mean,
you have a good guy and you have a bad guy, right? It's the same formula. You have to keep, even though ownership has changed, and I mean everything about the company has changed in it that they're international. They're bigger than any other sports entertainment package out there, and they know it. And no matter what happens with Vince, it's not going to change anything in it. That one, I'll be amazed if Vince's heart holds up, honestly, because there's so much pressure. Everything is coming out now, and we don't even know the whole story.
Right.
We only know a small part of it.
And it's like almost your every day you're waiting for another shoe to drop because you know this isn't the end of the story,
which is why we're watching.
Right. I mean, and it's a good time to be a wrestling fan. Really, it is. Honestly, it's a really good time to be a wrestling fan. It's also a really good time to be a Chiefs fan because someone wants you to acknowledge Patrick Mahomes as the tribal chief for football. So, I mean,
without a doubt. Again, he's worth. Do you think that he'd be paid $500 million if he couldn't win?
No, he's proving that he can win.
Not only is he proving he can win, he's proven he can win with teammates who have their focus on other things besides football. Okay, which has brought in $300 million since they started dating. That's a whole nother story in itself. It's all about marketing. He could have, if they really were going to do it right, and they didn't, they should have had Travis Kelce propose to her. That would have been the ultimate of the year. Instead, we just have the Kansas City Chiefs being champions again.
You know, some people have actually said that tomorrow is the victory parade in Kansas City, and tomorrow is Valentine's Day. So. Do you get it tomorrow? But you're right. I think it would have been better.
No, it would have. You have look at the audience.
Yeah, it was a huge
audience. I mean, they could have. Being Travis Kelce, he could have said to the commissioner, I've got an idea. Oh, they would have jumped on that in a heartbeat. And
all the news stations would have broken with breaking news on
it. Oh my goodness! It would have been the biggest news story of not only 2024, but at the same time on Taylor Swift's behalf, I wouldn't want to marry him until I know he's got 5 rings.
He might, if he keeps playing with Patrick Mahomes. I mean, like I said at the beginning, you know what? Patrick Mahomes is building that dynasty. You know what? Until someone beats him in the playoffs, you can't. Can you really bet against him? I mean,
well, that defense, Kansas City defense, was so good, man. I mean, to stop. They have both teams have so many weapons first of all. So many people they can go to. But both teams were excellent. I was shocked that Baltimore lost. Shocked. I mean, that to me was the upset of the year, because you go that far and next thing you know, you got a guy who was the last pick in the draft going to the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Everything, man, with sports and wrestling and everything going on, it's incredible. I mean, it's such a great time for entertainment. That's why I'm glad you guys are still on. And I also, for all of you that are out there, we haven't talked in probably 5 weeks. 3 times I tried to get on, and the Lord just wouldn't have it. I tried, it didn't happen, and I had zero excuse tonight. My wife is at work. I have nothing going on. I saw the message and I said, "Oh, I'm not missing this."
You're like,
one, timing is everything, right?
Right.
And with everything going on in all of our lives, in the government, in the elections, everything, there's so many things going on that I know there's somebody who's listening who isn't caring about all that because they're upset, they're hurt, they're struggling, and that's why I had to come on.
And like we said, we haven't seen. How was your? We haven't. I don't think we've talked. We haven't talked in 2024 yet at all.
This is the first time in 20. Man, it's been absolutely insane. The health issues I've had with all this stuff that's going around with allergies. I didn't have COVID. I didn't have the flu, but for like 4.5 weeks, I could barely talk. I mean, it was very, very difficult. But fortunately, we got through it. Mm-hmm. We got through the new year. Jamie and I just celebrated our 5th anniversary together, and that is awesome. Very excited about that. Her birthday's coming up too, Saturday. So we're going to have a little dinner for her and surprise her. And work has been absolutely insane, which is good.
I was going to say, that's a good thing though, right?
It's a great thing. Yeah, it helps pay the bills and the debts and everything else. But at the same time, I haven't taught anywhere. I mean, I haven't been public since the last time I was on your show. It's been very peaceful.
And I know we sent. We sent you the invitation, but we know on Tuesdays that sometimes you have to teach. So
not just that. Again, my work schedule, depending on, and I mean, some people don't understand that this takes work. Okay, mm-hmm. Not talking to you guys, but just publicly communicating takes preparation. You got to know what you're talking about. And I already knew coming in that 1, we were going to talk about WrestleMania. 2, we were going to talk about the Chiefs, because I believe we got huge Chiefs fans.
Oh, Renee, Sonny, and Dewan, who's the CEO.
I knew we would have a lot to talk about, but a lot of things have gone on, and God is faithful. And yes, I already acknowledged Patrick Holmes as tribal chief. But as you know, I only serve one real chief. And he's the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. He's the one who I acknowledge full time. But I will give the $500 million man and Mr. Swifty all the attention he feels he deserves. But you cannot. I didn't think the 49ers were going to make it to the playoffs originally. It did not look good.
Yeah, I did.
So I want to give them kudos for playing incredible defense and stopping the strength of Kansas City for as long as they did. I know why Kelsey got pissed. I know why. Because he was ready to play and he wanted to be in more plays, but he had 9 receptions. I mean, he had play. But over the last couple weeks, he's dropped a bunch too.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was their way of saying, hey,
get your head in the game. And it really looked like at the beginning of the game, it was going to be one of the worst games because no one could find the end zone. It was like they were like both defenses were like
incredible
up to the task. And then the bottom kind of fell out. Everyone, I mean.
Well, Kansas City, actually, both defenses started getting really tired because remember, this is not their first game of the year. This is the last game of a long, how many weeks? 16, 17 weeks. that they play and have to practice and be beaten up. And look at how many players got hurt. Good players last game.
Right.
You know, so both teams suffered quite a bit. So, but again, they made it. We're through. Now we get to focus on UFL for a little bit, which is good.
Mm-hmm. And we got the XFL with Rocky coming, with Rocky bringing that back. So
of course,
and
merged. I'm surprised it never hasn't bought them yet.
Oh, I'm sure it's coming, because I guess they can't buy everything all at one time. I mean, Endeavor's got a good business model there. They got the UFC on one side, they got WWE on the other. I mean, it's good to be Endeavor right now.
You can't go wrong, because both promotions are doing well. NXT, God, look at some of the people coming from NXT, man.
Man, Stacks gets better and better every time I see
this
him.
last match was without a doubt the greatest performance he's done up to this point. They beat the hell out of him, man. And I mean, he really did great. But just not only him. Look at Trick Williams, a bunch of these new guys. I was shocked on how many of these new people are coming. And I thought Jade Cargill totally underperformed at Rumble.
Yeah. Tiffany Stratton. Tiffany Stratton from NXT, she did a really good job in the Royal Rumble, and they said that she did such a good job. That's why they're bringing her up to SmackDown right away. I mean, because she's got the look. Two, I mean, she's really good, and she hasn't been doing it that long. She's only been like training for like 2-3 years at most.
But all these young athletes that are coming in are looking better than a lot of the veterans. I mean, look at Braun Breaker, 23 miles an hour, man. Shoo, shoo, shoo. I mean, he was jet. Why don't they all do that? Because they all can't do that. But that's all right.
I mean, well, Braun, you got to admit, Braun Breaker's got pretty good genes for being in the for being in the Steiner's family. But and it's a good time just to be wrestling. I mean,
you got just lots to choose from,
and if you can't find anything wrestling wise to watch on TV, then there's no hope for you. If you can't find something that you're not enjoying, there's something wrong with you. So,
and if you don't have Netflix, I know you'll be getting it.
You made Renee mad. He said, "How did Jade underperform at the Royal Rumble?"
Because she spent 3/4 of her time on her back in the corner. Just watch it. Obviously, picking up Nia Jax, right? Mm-hmm. That's a huge feat. Throwing her over, okay, she did great there. But if you look at from the moment she arrived, from the moment she was thrown out, 75% of her time she was laying down in the corner. And for what? That's just my opinion. You know, everybody has an opinion. Just like everybody has buttholes and they smell. You know what I mean? So ultimately, they waited to bring her out. They brought her out. And now what?
I mean, yeah. Well, gentlemen, I'm going to jump in here because, I mean, again, I think Jade Cargill was brought out at the right time. I think that we're going to see more out of Jade Cargill. Speaking of which, I want to give a shout out to the Wrestle Talk Podcast media department, because we're going to bring up here, I just want to kind of get this going, and the graphic kind of popped up here just a little bit ago. We're looking at the WWE World Championship. We're going to go back to our discussion before. Number one, the record that nobody is going to catch, Bruno Sammartino, 2,803 days. Here's the one that I find really interesting. Number two, as you look at what's here, number two, if it'll ever decide to get the computer to show, hold on 1 second here. Number two, maybe. Okay, number two looks like it's not going to be showing up here on the screen. There it is. Hulk Hogan, 1,474 days. Number three, Bob Backlund, 1,470 days. And as of right now, going back to what we have here, Roman, as of today, is 1,262 days.
Oof.
So the question isn't, does he pass Hogan? does the question in just a matter of a couple days, does he pass Hogan and Backlund and become number 2?
If they don't, just do the math. If they don't finish the story, he's not going to beat Hulk Hogan. No, if they finish the story, then he'll be able to beat Hulk Hogan. He won't beat Hulk Hogan.
Right.
Put back Hogan's number again, 1,400?
1474. I think it puts it a couple days.
Less than 200 days away.
Yeah, I think it puts it exactly right before. It either puts it right before SummerSlam or right before the Survivor Series. So, and don't ask me to do that.
That's why I think he needs to go after Seth. Go after Seth, win that belt, let the Roman continue. But from what I hear, they're getting rid of the undisputed.
Yeah, that was again. There are so many balls out there up in the air. No one really knows what. I mean, honestly, I don't think anyone really knows what's going to happen here. I mean, and that's great. That's great for a wrestling fan. I hate knowing people that are coming back. You know what I mean? I hate that we live in the internet age where it's like, oh, well, you're going to see this person show up at the Rumble or something like that. I mean, that's just me. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before.
I mean, Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins versus The Rock and Roman. I'm not going woo-hoo about that. I for some reason, that's just not doing it for me. And it sounds crazy, but it just seems like it's between the injury of CM Punk and the injury of Seth Rollins and the situation with Brock Lesnar. They got to do something.
Yeah, they had all of a sudden in a quick succession, they had to probably make 100,000 changes to what they were planning on doing, because I think they were planning on doing Punk versus Seth at WrestleMania, and The Rock wasn't even going to be involved. And then all of a sudden, the Vince stuff came out. Rock became a member of the board. Punk got injured. Seth is injured, so he's not 100%. I think he's just trying to get to Mania, to be honest with you, because you notice he doesn't have very much physically to do. So,
well, and The Rock would have made more sense being in Hollywood than he would have been being in Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
But it's 40. So
yes.
he wants to be a part of the 40th anniversary. I think that's how that decision got made.
Yeah, it's going to be it's going to be a really interesting time. I love it. So, but you know what, Perry, we haven't had any snippets of truth lately. So, you have something you have some stuff that you can lay on us of what we're looking forward to. I do know my brother is currently suffering with a little bit of bronchitis. He must have had that stuff that you got, because he's been sick this whole week. And he actually went to the doctor today, and they gave him an inhaler. They think he's got bronchitis. So,
and Chris, I'm gonna jump in here too. As you know, last week was supposed to be taking care of some stuff here on the Wrestle Talk podcast. My wife has been recovering from emergency surgery last week. She's been getting better day by day, and like I said, we go back Thursday. Hopefully, she's going to be able to go back to work. Again, it's been a really trying time over here the last few days. I also want to give a shout out. I'm not going to mention any names because I want to respect the individual. I didn't get a chance to talk to him beforehand, but I do know that there were a couple wrestlers who were banged up at CHWA's event this past weekend. I've been checking on a couple of them as we go as well, but a couple of them did suffer some injuries this past weekend as a part of the CHWA event. And again, I've been looking here, seeing if we have any other messages that are coming through here on the feed. And I don't see anything else at this point. But, I mean, again, it's been a while since we've had our snippets of truth. So, Big Daddy P, we're going to go ahead and throw this here to you to lay it on us this week for the snippet of truth with Big Daddy P right here on the WTB.
We are living in a trying time. Things are difficult. But I want you to remember the words that I didn't write. Nor did these words exist the year or even the century I was born. The Lord wrote, "For I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you, plans for hope." I think we got to remember that no matter what's going on within our life, no matter what's going on in the world, with the elections, with wrestling, with the government, with corruption, with all around the world, the wars, the rumors of wars, everything, we need to remember one thing. He is in control. And if there are plates that are we have to keep spinning so they don't break, that's what we're going to have to do. And we can't be surprised when we have trials and tribulations, because again, keep in mind, he knows the plan that he has. Now, if you're a believer in Jesus, then what's going to happen is when the time comes, and the Bible says like a thief in the night, it's going to come in a second. We're going to be out of here. And there is going to be tribulation on this earth. And the church is not going to experience it. So don't lose hope. If you're a believer, doesn't mean you have to be perfect. Just keep your eyes on the one who is perfect, because he already knows how imperfect we are. We're not trying to be perfect. We're trying to be Christ-like. It starts with love. So no matter what you're going through, remember that love is the key. In Corinthians, it says, do everything in love. That means whining, complaining, murmuring, bitching, right? Do it in love. Recognize that everything isn't going the way that you want, which is good, because it makes you dependent on him. I'd rather be God dependent than independent, because I can only do so much. So I came on tonight knowing that there's somebody out there who's a believer, who has heard what Christ did for them and has believed that work for eternal life. Your name is written in the book of life, and not even death can separate you from that love. So don't worry yourself. Stop trying so hard to be who you want to be, and put your eyes and focus on the way he is. Because the people around us, they're the ones who need us. They look at us. They might not tell us, and you might not know, but it is you that they're looking to, because they want to believe in something too. And while the world is saying you don't need God, you can do it all on your own, that's a lie. You can't. How can you straighten what God has bent? You didn't bring yourself into this world. He brought you in. So if he brought you in, it's his character at stake, because he says, I will provide for your needs according to the riches of my grace. Now, he doesn't need money because he has all the money in the world. He doesn't need food because he doesn't eat. He's God. But we need all of those things. And if you are suffering right now, it's because he wants you to know that he wants you to need him. Trust him. Trust him if it's the light bill, if it's a bitchy ex-wife or a bitchy wife, whatever your situation might be, trust him. Put your faith in him and let him sort it out, because you can only go so far, like a car can only so far with gasoline. But when there's no gasoline, that car ain't moving. So if you have a Bible, grab it, start in the book of Job, which it's an Old Testament book. Use the book of Job, because I want you to see how the relationship between God and Satan. See, both of them, one wanted to be like God and failed and got thrown down to earth, and now he's the king of, he's the God of this world. But see, we're just sojourners. We're borrowing this space. The money that we have, it was given to us from him. The jobs that we have, given to us from him. Our friends, given by him. Our own breath. People didn't even wake up today. There are people who were planning on driving home from work tonight and aren't going to make it. But if you're hearing my voice, that's not an accident or a coincidence. So rest assured that the plans that he has for you aren't going to stop because maybe you think you failed him or you let him down. He loves you. Not only did he die for you, but he protects you every single day, and he wants you to keep going. Don't give up. He said, I have overcome the world. Greater is he who is in me than who is in the world. So if he's in me and God is in me and I get the Spirit of God in me, that means I have to trust him. That's why the men on the boat, when all the storms were coming, wake up, Lord, we're going to perish. He told the wind to hush. He's in your boat now. Stop panicking and trust him. And that is your snippet of truth.
Oh, and also we had AJ brought it back to our attention. We lost a legendary promoter here in St. Louis. Luke knows him very well. Frank Reed.
What's happening with his promotion?
I believe his sons are going to take over, if I'm not mistaken.
Good. They're the ones who need prayer now.
Yeah.
Because taking over an existing promotion, look at what happened with Vince and new ownership. You see what happens in a big level, in an independent level. They're so lucky to have the sons to continue it. And so I want to pray for we'll pray for their family for sure, and for them. And for also, too, it's going to bring the whole promotion together. The fans, the sponsors, everybody,
and not just his promotion. It's affected, because Luke will attest to it. He gave a lot of people their first start. I mean, am I right in that, Luke, in saying that?
Yeah, he gave a lot of people. I mean, again, you have the opportunity to talk about. And I remember a prime example on Kane's WWE documentary with A&E. One of the things they showed was an actual old RCW program, which featured Kane and many wrestlers we had known. And I remember talking guys like Marcus Mansfield, like the Stud, among others who were there as well. So, again, a lot of things there that Frank Reed. Matter of fact, several of the wrestlers who were on the event Saturday night actually went to the memorial early Saturday afternoon, and drove from the event, from the memorial and the services to the event in Edwardsville. So, I mean, again, he did make a huge impact.
So Perry, do you want to send us out with a little bit of prayer for everybody so we can get this week going and move on and go on?
For sure. Father God, I can never thank you enough for allowing me to talk about your goodness to this lost and dying world. You've heard the petitions and prayers for not only this promoter and the promotion, but the family now that he is face to face with you. We know now, Father, that this promotion is in your hands, and we pray for all the injuries and all those who are having health issues, who can't do what they love to do. Father, you are the great healer, and I thank you in advance for what you're going to do for all those who are not feeling well, that you're going to make them feel better. We know that you would not allow sickness to come upon them unless there was a purpose and a plan. Father, you've heard all the other requests, and you also heard the ones that weren't made. All the ones that people who are turning to you right now, just a mustard seed of faith, hoping that you'll answer their prayers. Not only do I know that you're faithful and that you answer prayers, but you also meet our heart's desire. And I pray right now, Father, that anybody who is listening, who has had a positive attitude towards you, that not only you would strengthen them, provide for their needs, but overly bless them. Let them remember and see and know this prayer that we prayed this week, that by next week, we get to hear some wonderful testimonies about how our prayers were answered. We have not because we ask not. And there are many people that don't want to bother you, Lord, because they think you're busy. But all you're doing is waiting for them to come to you. You said, come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, who are burdened, and you will give them rest. It is by faith and faith alone that we can get closer to you. And I know there's somebody right now, Father, who's mad at you because of something that's happened in their life. And they haven't forgiven you because they don't understand. And you know that. I was one of them over 23 years ago. But you showed yourself to me because somebody prayed. And now we do that on their behalf. those that don't believe, who haven't trusted you yet, Father, that you would show yourself to them, that they would fall in love with you just like we have. I thank you so much, and I love you. And I ask these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Perry, is really good seeing you. I hope every week you are more than welcome to be on the show. And
Don't ever forget. See, one of the times you didn't send me a link, and that's the past.
Mm-hmm.
You just send me a link.
Yeah, and if you can come on, you can. If you can't,
let the Lord work out the rest, because I hate missing it. I hate it, but sometimes I have to make a decision. But just know too, when that happens, I know and I pray, because I never want to let anybody down. I never want to be remembered as somebody who didn't care. Even with all the junk that I've been personally experiencing, it doesn't matter, because it's all temporary. I love blessing people by encouraging them. And I haven't had the chance to do that. And so I'm thankful again that you opened up the opportunity for me to be able to do that, because now I know tonight when I rest my head on my pillow, I don't have to go, I missed Wrestle Talk again.
Well, Perry, it is really good seeing you. We hope that you have a good rest of the week. Stay out of trouble. You're always welcome.
Everybody.
And we will see you hopefully next week.
That'll be the plan. Love you guys.
All right, love you guys. See you. Talk to you soon.
Take care, guys.
All right, bye. All right, Luke. Luke, you're muted. You're muted.
I told you it would happen, Chris. I did.
I know, it happens at least once a show.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. But you know something, Chris? We know full well that Big Daddy P is a very integral part of the Wrestle Talk podcast family each and every week. And again, I want to say thank you again to Big Daddy P for coming on the program. Chris, we know our guest is in the green room. We're going to go ahead here in just a few moments, and we're going to bring him on here. But before we do, I think we do need to go ahead, as we always do, and talk about our great sponsors. So we do go ahead and take it away and talk about our great sponsors here on the Wrestle Talk podcast.
Our sponsor is Royal Mills Transportation, the CEO, DeJuan Mills, Nobleman Barber Lounge in Kansas City, Missouri, Kincaid Arcade at the Oak Park Mall, the I-70 Sports Media with the maestro Jeremy Karp, Little Popeye Designs, those are where you can get those Wrestle Talk podcast tumblers, and the FWWC, the world's premier fantasy wrestling group, and they are on their road to Universe Mania. So
that is true, Chris. That is very true. And again, if you want to find out more about the FWWC, you can follow them on social media. You can also tune in every Thursday evening. And I know it's a little bit late. It's a little bit behind the times, but the only way we can actually go into things right now, as we said before, I think the great Lord Alfred Hayes would be the best thing to go.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
That is right. So
that is right. So you know something, Chris, we're going to go ahead and here, and then I know a lot of the viewers of the Wrestle Talk podcast have been tuning in for this guest. Now, this individual has been around professional wrestling for a long time. I've had the opportunity to compete against him, not necessarily compete against him, but I've been in the ring with him on several occasions in many promotions throughout the Midwest. I will tell you right now, too, a lot of people have said that this is a matchup that some people would have said would have been that dream matchup that a lot of people would have wanted to see. And to give you an idea, man's been around pro wrestling since 2007. I mean, almost 2 decades in the world of professional wrestling. So at this time, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and get some introduction music ready here. Bear with me just a minute. We're going to go ahead and bring in our featured guest this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, Jaysin Static. Let's go ahead and hit that music. Maybe.
If it's coming.
Maybe.
Maybe.
And of course, Jaysin Static right in the correct position here.
Man, I thought I was coming into a professional show.
Oh, we've been having technical gremlins all night long. It's one of those things. Jaysin, welcome to the Wrestle Talk podcast. How you doing?
Oh, man. Appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for letting me come on, man.
Well, Jaysin, I got to tell you right now, I mean, again, you and I are much from the same mold. I mean, again, I was looking back at your history, and again, you talk about 2007. You talk about your start in professional wrestling, and a lot of people that aren't in the St. Louis area are not familiar with the historic South Broadway Athletic Club and the training that took place for you to become a wrestler at South Broadway. For those that are watching the program here this evening, can you give a little bit about what it was like to train at South Broadway? And again, we're going to talk about some of the names that you trained with and competed against during that time. It was basically a who's who of the early 21st century.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the main trainer at that time, whenever I came in down there, the main trainer was Johnny Courageous. Good guy, good worker. I don't think he's working anywhere anymore. I think he retired and everything. But like you said, there was a who's who of essentially anybody who was a worker down at MMWA at the time was coming down there training people. So on a Monday, if you were down there, and I was one of those guys that was down there every single day of the week if I could be, even if there was nobody down there training that day, I was still down there taking bumps myself. But, Jimmy Harris, Billy Diamond, Brandon Espinoza, AJ Williams, like you said, there's a who's who of all of the guys who was in that pocket, in that area of Gino, their exterminator, came down a couple of times, and I got to catch stuff with him. Davey Richards used to come down there all the time. Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish used to come down quite a bit. So it was a who's who of essentially anybody that was in the area at that time. Jimmy Harris.
Jimmy Harris, another one. Yeah, that's another one that you're looking here. I don't know where we're going to go with this one, Jaysin. I really don't know what's there. But, I mean, again, you talk about Johnny Courageous. And, again, I'm going to tell you right now, being around pro wrestling as long as I have, Johnny Courageous was one of those individuals that doesn't get as much credit as he truly deserves. I mean, he was a man that could go out there and he could wrestle. I mean, literally, he could wrestle with anybody. You wanted to put him in there in the ring with the likes of a Gino the Exterminator. You wanted to put him in the ring with guys like a Billy Diamond. You wanted to put him in the ring with guys like Shaft. And then you look at other guys like yourself, like Webmaster Stevie K. When you look at guys like Brandon Espinoza, like an Ace Hawkins, the man could go out there and wrestle anybody.
Yeah,
and he was just amazing. And again, he was one of those. I mean, dare say, as his moniker was, he was almost like truth, justice, in the American way.
Yeah, and I also caught like snippets and tidbits of stuff from Tony Costa himself, because a lot of people didn't know, but I actually worked at Broadway at that time too. Like, I wasn't just a wrestler; I actually worked at the building, so I was an employee of the company of the South Broadway Athletic Club at the time. So me, after the shows, we'd clean up. I would sit there with Tony. I would hang out with Tony. I'd go over to Tony's house and all that stuff. So there was a lot of times where me and Shaft and Tony would be sitting there cleaning up the events after everybody left, and we'd just sit there and talk about what happened, what was going on, ideas and stuff like that. So it was a super cool environment to come up in, because I didn't just get trained by one person. I got trained by a whole litany of people, of wild and crazy characters, So I got a little bit from everybody. I got a little bit from Lightfoot. I got a little bit from, Philly Blunt, Shaft. Shaft is the guy that actually brought me in to wrestling. If it wasn't for Shaft, I wouldn't be here. So Shaft was the one that opened the door for me. He's the one that told me about Broadway. So, everything that I do is and thanks to him, because he's the one that, gave me the opportunity when he didn't have to.
And that's one thing too, and I agree with you. Again, shout out to Shaft and the great folks at Outside the Ring as well. Again, longtime friends of the Wrestle Talk podcast. When you have wrestlers that you compete against, and now I have wrestlers you learn from. I mean, you mentioned two names. Shaft is one of those. Shaft is a man I think it's going to wrestle till he's 100 years old.
Probably.
I think it's the way it's going to be. It's like the old adage. Every time we want to finally decide it's time to put the boots on the mat, put them on the mantle, call it a career, for some reason or another, we get drugged back in. Prime example is he's wrestling a man I know that you were familiar with too, a man by the name of Cayman. Yeah, and there were some issues there in the past as well. I want to go ahead here. We were looking at some of the matches that you had, and one of the things before I send this over to Chris, is a lot of people know that you had a pretty solid rivalry with one Brandon Espinoza. I know right now he's traveling all around the Midwest. What are your thoughts about the wars you had in the ring, and professionally and personally, your views on one Brandon Espinoza?
Brandon's got a bad rap about over the years, but the way that I see him is he's the type of guy who really cares about what he's doing. He cares deeply about what he's doing, and he wants to be as professional as he can. And sometimes when you have a little bit of passion behind something, sometimes you get a little bit of an attitude behind you. And that happens sometimes. Everybody's had that attitude, especially in wrestling. We're essentially a business built on attitude and ego and all kinds of stuff. So sometimes that stuff does get in the way. But with all that being said, if it wouldn't have been for Brandon, I wouldn't have had a lot of the shots and chances that I was given. Me wrestling in North Carolina was because of Brandon. Me wrestling in Tennessee was because of Brandon. Me wrestling over in IWAU was because of Brandon. Me wrestling for who was it? It was an NWA 01. I think they were a part of NWA at the time back then. So if it wasn't for Brandon teaching me the ropes, I wouldn't have done a lot of the stuff that I did because, I'm one of those guys, and I tell my guys all the time, like, I did a lot of stuff wrong, and I didn't push myself as far as I feel that I could have went if I really pushed myself. Brandon was the guy that sat there and pushed me, knowing that I could do it, but me not having enough confidence in myself to actually go out and do it on my own. So if it wouldn't have been, I know this now. I wish I would have known this back then. But Brandon was the guy who was literally kind of like, Jaysin, come on, get going. Come on, Jaysin, get going. You can do this. Take this shit serious. Go ahead, man. Because I had a bunch of options. I had a bunch of opportunities, like wild and crazy opportunities starting out in my career. Like my third professional wrestling match that I ever had was with Tracy Smothers.
Mm-hmm.
For Juggalo Championship Wrestling. And I got that on a whim because I knew a guy. I went there to the show because he was like, hey, they're doing a show over here. Do you want to come over and hang out? I was like, yeah. And then he introduced me to Scott D'Amore, who was actually running their book at the time.
Mm-hmm. And you talk about Scott D'Amore, it's really a kind of a full circle thing. You saw earlier on in the program, we were talking about his departure. I guess would be the best way to put it in TNA. I got to ask you, I mean, he's had a very storied career. I mean, you look at Team Canada, you look at Border City Wrestling, you look at the countless different promotions he's been in. What are your thoughts about Scott D'Amore and his departure from TNA?
Well, I mean, with as much as moving parts as they've had going on over the last 6 months or so, like to me, like for Anthem to get rid of him for essentially nothing because nobody's said anything yet so far about it on the reasons of why he was terminated. To me, I see that as detrimental because one thing that you got to do, like the gentleman that was on here a while ago, he said to be a good leader, you have to be a good servant at first. So Scott D'Amore was always a good, he was always a TNA guy. Did good by TNA, and then he built up his reputation, and he finally got up into the spot that he was in to where he could actually pull some strings and do some stuff. And he literally turned TNA all the way around to the point of where, they were, having talks with WWE, behind the scenes, doing stuff with Mickie James in the Rumble last year. I think that was Mickie James in the Rumble last year. Help bringing over Nick Aldis and everything like that, all of that came between all of that area, so like to me, I don't know what Anthem is doing, and I'm kind of one of those guys like nowadays, like I don't want to really talk crap on a bunch of people because I kind of want to build things up and build people up and not talk crap because that's what got me in so much trouble years ago. So I want to build people up, but I think they really dropped the proverbial ball on this one because unless something comes out like, he did some wild stuff, I don't know. Like, to me, it's a ball drop because, like Moose is one of their top guys. Moose literally said in an interview about a week ago, a week or two before the firing, that the only reason he didn't sign with WWE over TNA was because of Scott D'Amore, because of the relationship that he formed with Scott D'Amore. So, and that's another big part about being able to you got to be able to form relationships with people. So, like, we got to tamp down that ego, and we got to tamp down that attitude, and realize that we don't know everything about everything. We think we do, but we don't. And sometimes you just got to be able to listen to what people say instead of sticking your foot in your mouth all the time.
And Jaysin, that's one thing as young wrestlers, and I thank you for bringing it forward, because I myself very early in my career did the exact same thing. It's one of those, you think you know everything at 19, 20, 21 years old, you're getting into the wrestling industry. And one of the things I always tell people, I know you're the same way with your training school and all the wrestlers that you brought forward into the world of professional wrestling, is the best way to go about it is sit down, keep your mouth shut, keep your ears open, and listen and take that knowledge, because without knowledge in this industry, you're not going to go anywhere. I mean, again, you have to have athletic ability, you have to have all the conditioning and the charisma and all that, but you got to listen.
Yeah. That's something I actually, like, one of my biggest requests of the guys that I work with is, like, and I tell them guys this, and I'm serious about it, I may not be right about what I'm teaching you at this exact point in time. Somebody might tell you something different that works better for you. Listen, if that's the case, say, like, hypothetically, if I'm teaching you how to throw a clothesline, right? And that clothesline's not working out for you, and Luke Roberts tells you and it works out better for you, he's right in that point. If it works better for you, we have to get into this mindset of understanding that sometimes there's people that know more about us, and that's one of my big things. Is, like, I'm big about showing respect to people and understand and letting guys know and making guys understand that this business is about knowledge. So get that knowledge from whoever you can get it from. Even if it seems like it might be bad at that time, like, if I hear you say something and then I hear Chris say something, those two things might be different at that. You might say something one way, Chris might tell me how to do it one way, but you guys are telling me the exact same thing, but Chris's works better than what Luke's does. Mm-hmm. So therefore, it's going to make me a better worker, when I'm taking information from each and every single person that I come in contact with.
And I couldn't have said it any better, Jaysin. We're here right now with Jaysin Static, longtime professional wrestling personality here in the St. Louis area. And I'm going to turn things over. I mean, this is one of those interviews I really enjoy, because the idea where you, myself, and Chris Rodell, if you put the three of us together, we're looking really since about the late 1990s into the early 2000s. I mean, all three of us are kind of that same mindset. And Chris, I know there's a lot of things that you can add to this discussion as well. So I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to my broadcast colleague here, Chris Rodell.
Oh yeah, I kind of want to bring it back because you were talking about your training, and you opened up. You're also a trainer, like you said. I know several of your guys. I've met several of your people that you've trained. Yep. You have Fight Club Wrestling Academy. So, yep. What is the first thing that you tell a new trainee when they come in?
One of the first things that I try to tell people is, I ask them what they want out of pro wrestling. What is it that you want? Where do you want to go? Because to me, that's big. That's a big thing for me, because I want to know how I can help you get to where you want to go. It's not good enough for me to just keep guys in this St. Louis area or in this Midwest area. You know, like, okay, I got a guy named Eagle Eye. He wants to go as far as he absolutely can, meaning he wants to go to the big show. So he's going to work different. I've got to train him differently than what I have to train a guy who just wants to stay here locally. You know, so my first thing is I ask them what they want. Do you want to be the WWE superstar? Do you want to go wrestle for New Japan? Do you want to go down to Mexico and wrestle for AAA? Do you want to go wrestle for AW or AEW? Any of these other big companies? Because that's a different level that you're playing on. So you've got to carry yourself from the very get-go. When your first match, the first time that you step into an arena or a building and you start interacting with the business itself, not just the training aspect, you've got to carry yourself in a different way than what you would if you just want to be the local guy who wrestles once a month. And that's perfectly fine if you want to be that guy that just wrestles once a month. That's another thing is there's so many different areas of wrestling. And I tell the guys that there's different levels. You got your backyarders. Everybody talks crap about backyarders, but if you want to be honest, everybody started from a backyard. Everybody,
that's the truth.
Everybody. So this mindset of, backyarders are, junky. No, some of the biggest names in this industry were backyard guys beforehand. So let's just drop that to begin with, and that's your first level. Your second level is your once a month guys who wrestles for a couple of the companies in the area. Then you have your third level, your guys who travel to all the different shows in a 60 to 80 mile radius. And then you have your unsigned talent who does it as a job, who wrestles all around the world. And then you have your contracted talents who are wrestling contractually for all of the big companies. Which of those levels do you want to be on? Which do you want to play on? That's the first thing that I ask these guys is, what level do you want to play on? Because then I know how I have to help you. And whether my guys make it to that level or not, at some point in time, it's on them. I can only guide them, for so long before they have to take the reins of their own career, and make those moves from what I've taught them to get to those next levels. So that's one of the first things that I ask.
And as someone's going into their first show, like let's just use we'll use Eagle Eye or Jerry Morgan. When they came to you and said, "Hey, I got my first book. I got my first booking. What do I need to do when I go into the building? As soon as I get there, what etiquette do I need? Do you teach them? You teach them the locker room etiquette, I assume, right?
Well, yeah. The one thing that I tell the guys is, we use Eagle Eye as an example because he was the guy that was the first graduate. So I took him over to a PWE show and introduced him to Lenny. And this was about a month or two before he even had a match. But we went over there, we hung out, I introduced him to a couple of people because I knew that he was going to be venturing out. So we were going to a couple of the shows that were all around. We went to CHWA, we went to Lenny's, we went to a couple other places. And, something I told him, the biggest thing for me, like I said a while ago, is respect. And that's not respect of anybody and everybody in the business. That's respect of the business in general, which means respect everybody, even if they're not respecting you. Because that's something that I had a problem with. I had a mouth on me back in the day, and I ran afoul of a couple of the older guys because I stepped to them and I said some shit that I probably shouldn't have, and not saying that it hurt me in any way, but it was just not a good way to do business. And to me, it's just a disrespect. It's showing a disrespect to the business, not just the person that you disrespected, but the actual business of professional wrestling. So that's my biggest thing, is showing respect to the business, because once you start disrespecting anybody and everybody, just for the hell of it, just for the giggles and everything like that, that's when like all the stuff on the outside on the back, we take the backside of the wrestling business to the outside and we start showing it to the fans, and the fans get in it, and then just becomes this toxic mindset of, let's go after this person. Let's go after this person, because that's not helping anybody. I'm big on trying to bring a little bit of respect back to the business, and that's trying to build people up, yeah, guys, every company has their good and bad things, everybody has a good show, but everybody has things on that show that's bad sometimes. Let's build those people up instead of tearing them down, being like, oh, this guy sucks. F this guy. He needs to get the hell out of the business. Well, maybe we should just slow the roll a little bit and be like, okay, this is what you did wrong. And this is why you did wrong. Maybe let me hear why you did. Like, one of the things that I do, I ask my guys, I go, the first thing that I ask them after they have a match, and I don't go to all the matches because I can't, but one thing that I ask them, the first thing I ask them is, I go, what do you feel that you did wrong in the match? What do you feel you could have done better in your match? So they start looking at themselves with an analytical eye of, oh, I did this wrong. I can do this better next time. Instead of being like, putting them over all the time, being like, oh, yeah, bro, that was a great fucking match. No, you did this wrong. This is why. Try to do it this way. Maybe see how it works. Get some information from somebody else. Ask this guy, what do you think I did good? What do you think I did wrong? I think we, as the older generation, we need to start being a little bit, something that we always say, the older guys are like, you got to respect the business. You got to respect us, blah, blah. No. But we got to show respect to those guys too, because these are the guys that's furthering the industry. So we've got to learn how to actually talk to guys more often and be like, hey, we think you might have done this wrong. Let me hear your opinion on it. What do you feel you did wrong? Type stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and plus, if someone, and as you probably know, that if someone gets a reputation, the wrestling business, as much as it's like huge, it's also very small, especially when you're in the local community, like the St. Louis, this Illinois area type community is it's not small, but it's not like super huge, and everybody talks to everybody at some point. And if you end up getting a bad reputation, that's gonna kind of burn you down the road. At least that's my opinion. I don't know if Luke or Jaysin, if you have a feeling on that.
Well, I'm gonna throw one out here for Jaysin, and I think he would agree. Is the idea where when you're in the world of professional wrestling, you've got to understand that there are certain things. I always looked at it from the point of view of where, as Jaysin said, there are times when I'm going to be right. There's going to be times when I'm not even going to be remotely right. And it's one of those where, when it comes down to it, it's just the idea of you take what works for you. And again, it's kind of like, I liken it to a great actor. You don't take one particular person's thought process and make it work. You learn a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And you go around. I mean, that's like a lot of the wrestlers you see today. They can do lucha libre. They can do chain wrestling. They can do the aerial offense. They can brawl with the big guys. They can do the hardcore when they need to. You got to take little pieces of everything. And if you stub your toe along the way, you may have to pay for it down the road.
Yeah. Yeah. Renee actually made a good point right now. He said, got to be humble enough to accept criticism. That's part of the younger ones struggle with it. And, honestly, Renee, I think that's a struggle that we as wrestlers and people in the wrestling bubble have in general. Like, we don't like to take criticisms of what we do, because it makes us feel like we're less than. It was something I heard. I heard this. It was either yesterday or today. I don't remember exactly when I heard it. But Conan was talking about Conan and Disco was on their podcast, and they were talking about a situation with Eddie Guerrero. And they said that Eddie, anytime that Eddie had a match, he would go to somebody and ask them to watch his match to see what they said he was doing wrong or to what he could do better. That's Eddie freaking Guerrero. If Eddie Guerrero did that type of stuff, why can't we start thinking like that? You know, like I just want to do better. I want to Chris, you said something a while ago. Leave the business better than it was whenever I started.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I want to teach guys what I wasn't taught that I know now. And I want to make sure that I leave guys in a mindset of what can I do for the business? What can I bring back to the business that's not currently going on right now? How can I be different? And how far can we go with this?
Mm-hmm.
You know, because it's a big uphill battle.
And Luke is I talked to Luke about this several times. Is like I'm still amazed because I'm a ring announcer. I'm like, and I was a former referee as well. But wrestlers come up to me after the show or after their match and be like, "So what did you think of it?" And I'm like, "Well, why are you asking my opinion? I'm just a ring announcer." But then Luke and also Sadie's like, "You know what? Because you watch the entire show, you see every single match, you see everything. So if you're doing something wrong." Like they're doing something wrong, I'm like, okay, I guess I can kind of start seeing that now. So it's a little bit easier when people ask me, and you know, I mean, it's just something that kind of humbles me.
Yeah, you got to take it like this though, like you know, they're right. You're the guy sitting there watching the whole entire show from start to finish, so you see absolutely everything that happens. So you're almost, you know, and this is no knock, but you're almost in a better position to tell people what they could do better, what they should not do than anybody else that's in the building, because you're actually sitting there watching it the whole entire time. You're the one that helps tell the story of what's going on in the ring. If there is no ring announcer, if there is no referee, if there is no commentary team, there is no professional wrestling. They're the ones that tell the story. So you're almost, you know, and this is another thing, like, you know, like I know I'm not too big of a person to be like, oh yeah, Chris, go talk to Chris. Chris watched your whole match. He'll help you out. Whenever I direct people to go, like whenever I sent my guys up to Dynamo after we lost out on our first building, you know, I told them to go find someplace else to train in the meantime. No other trainer that you know of would personally tell your guys to go work for another company, another training company. I go, if you can get in someplace, go do it, because they're going to teach you something different than what I'm going to teach you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Eagle Eye, he wants to go down, train at Nightmare Factory, you know, in a year or two. Good, go do it. You're going to gain more knowledge down there with QT Marshall and them guys. You know, like if any of my guys if they want to go to Dynamo, if they want to go over to Ace Academy, if they want to go to any of these companies, they can go do that, because I'm not in the market of trying to hold my guys down. I'm in the market of trying to make my guys be the absolute best that they can be, not the absolute best that I can be. If that makes sense.
Jaysin, that looks at it. I mean, again, you talk about, and I want to kind of hit on 2 points here. One, you talk about people like referees, like announcers, like security, and people along those lines. Wrestlers provide the physical part of the story. Everybody else provides the soundtrack. They provide all that the extra levels, the extra bells and whistles with things. But one of the things, as you said too, and I find it very refreshing, is that when it comes to professional wrestling, you're not going to learn every style in one place. You need to go to a variety of places. And again, I think about a former broadcast colleague of ours, and I know a lot of fans here of the Wrestle Talk podcast are going to find this name a blast from the past, one Richard Douglas. He spent a good amount of time at Dynamo Pro, and he made an opportunity to go down to the Rhodes Wrestling Academy down in Texas. And I could tell immediately from there that he was a completely different wrestler when he returned. He had several different little nuggets in the toolbox, so to speak. So you know exactly what's there, and you can bring it back and show so much more and expand the wrestling industry.
Right. Jim Harris makes a good point. He goes, as a booker and promoter, it was my job to watch every match, take notes, and think, how can I help them make it better and help them step up their game more and get that crowd into what they're doing. That's exactly true, but that's exactly true for the guys that are on the outside of the curtain, your ring announcers, your ring announcers, your commentary guys. They're out there watching the whole entire show, whereas Jim, the promoter and the booker, might not be able to do that at exact every single moment. So Jim, I'm not taking anything away, but as a promoter and the promoter and the booker might not always be there at every single time. But the people that are there at every single moment in time are the guys on the outside the ring announcer, your commentators. Why do you think Michael Cole has had that job forever? Because he knows what the hell's going on. He knows what he's doing. Like that's one of the things, like and I'm gonna Jerry Morgan's. He's not technically one of my guys, because he trained before. He trained with Espinoza and Broadway way back in the day, and then he decided to come back into wrestling. He linked up with me, and now he's, I guess you could say, one of my guys. And he's helped me out a lot because stuff that I can't physically do anymore, he can get in there and help me do the guys, show with the guys. He can actually get in there and work matches with the guys all the time. I can't get in there and physically work matches with the guys all the time. I can do it occasionally here and there, but he's better suited for me to have as a partner to help me out with working with guys than just about anybody, because he can actually get in there and do the stuff that I say. So yeah, that's something that I'm real big on, is like, I want to bring people into what I'm doing that can help me. Like when we had the first building, one of the first people that I contacted was Jimmy Harris and Billy Diamond to come down and hang out. Philly Blunt, guys that brought me into the business. And then they brought John Blackheart, and John Blackheart would come down and hang out with us sometimes. So like I'm in the, like I tell my guys, I'm not in. It's kind of a funny thing that I say. Like, I'm not in the wrestling business. I'm in the knowledge business.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I can bring somebody in and have like special training sessions with guys, whether it be for working on promos, working cameras, being able to shoot a professional wrestling show that actually looks appealing, like to teach guys how to run a camera to make it look appealing for a professional wrestling show. Because, when I got out of wrestling, I started doing photography and videography work and stuff like that. So like, I know I wouldn't say that I'm the greatest at it, but I know what looks visually good for a wrestling show, for as a fan and as somebody who's done that stuff in the past, so like, I'm really big on trying to teach guys that wrestling is not, and as sad as this might be to say, wrestling's not just about the wrestling. Wrestling's about a little bit more than that. Wrestling's about being able to grab people in, letting people get emotional towards you. What makes me, what makes me as the wrestler so goddamn great that makes 100,000 people want to follow me. And it's not just the wrestling. What a lot of it is being an emotional connection to that person. Having that emotional connection. Being able to listen to somebody talk and being like, this is what got me. This is what hooked me. You see what I'm talking about? Like when you're doing a show like this, being able to emotionally connect to people is a good thing. Like I have a YouTube channel and I streamed for like 3 years straight, and people would, and it was small, and it gradually got a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. And people to this day, they go, Jaysin, why don't you stream anymore? You need to stream more. You need to do this more. You need to do that more. It's because I emotionally connected with the people. That's the thing with wrestling is wrestling's not just about what we do in the ring. It's about how can we emotionally connect to these people that are sitting out here paying our bills. How can we emotionally connect to these people? And that's something that I work with the guys is trying to get them to understand that this business is not just about the cool ass moves that we do, but it's also being able to emotionally connect to the people in the crowd.
And Jaysin, I want to go back here and I want to take just a second here. You talk about how professional wrestlers need to be able to observe and learn and take the knowledge. I did a little bit of research. And back in 2013, you went to a place that Chris and I both had the opportunity to go to. That's Impact Pro Wrestling up in Iowa as a part of the National Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame weekend up in Waterloo, Iowa.
That wasn't me. That was another Jaysin.
One other Jaysin Static?
Yeah. The funny thing is what I didn't know whenever I picked my name is that there was another guy on the indies at the time who was wrestling as Jason Static. And he was from I think he was like from New Jersey maybe, but he was cut up, like he was ripped, he was a bigger guy, a big muscle guy. And I was kind of a short midgety guy, so like
short and stocky.
We got confused a lot.
One thing I'm gonna have to jump on I'm going to jump on our media team on this one because the idea that the way they had it spelled and when they were doing their research is the exact same spelling. So we're going to have to make sure that we have a nice little meeting tomorrow from the wonderful media department. But anyway, besides all the great wrestling talk, I do want one thing to talk to you about, and that is your wrestling school. You brought a lot of information about it, but my question to you is this: being a longtime pro wrestler like we discussed here tonight, what makes your academy stand out as a destination for aspiring pro wrestlers?
What makes see that's a little bit hard for me because it's really depends on what you want with wrestling. Again, like if what I have different, what I try to do different is I don't just try to teach you about wrestling, the in-ring stuff. I try to teach you about the history of pro wrestling. Where it started, how it started, where it began, why this situation happened here. And I think what a lot of people do, and this is not a knock to any other wrestling school or anything. What I think a lot of people do is they just teach the guys the in-ring stuff. But I don't think enough guys teach like the history of where it is and where it came from. Like when our first building that we had, we worked out with boxers and MMA guys. And there was this one time that the MMA guys were kind of like chuckling, about what we were doing in the ring and everything. And I walked up to them and I was like, hey, do you guys understand that the history of MMA, the history of your guys' sport came from professional wrestling? It was professional wrestlers that started MMA. So like, and then they're like, oh, I didn't know that. So like, and then actually bringing them MMA guys in and showing them what we do, teaching them the roles and all that stuff, and a couple of other little things that we do. And then they're like, oh, this is a lot different than what we expect it would be. So like what I try to do is I try to bring a variety of people in kind of the same way that I was trained. I try to bring in a variety of people. Like, I would love to get Sadie down there. I would love to get the guys at the Forge down there to work out. I would love to get, and I got a handful. I got a list about a mile long of guys that I want to bring down and do special sessions with. There's guys that I want to bring down who don't do any in-ring wrestling, but who just do commentating, who just do, ring announcing stuff. Because to me, being able to leave everything better than what it was whenever I left it, the way that I left it. That's my ultimate things: promos, conditioning, philosophy, character work, strength training, presentation, etc. Jerry Morgan, my guy, helping me out here. So that's the type of stuff that I work on. Like, we do a lot of working out, a lot of hard, heavy working out, a lot of philosophy. I take my school, my gym, as part professional wrestling, part philosophy school. Because wrestling to me there's philosophy in wrestling, there's psychology in wrestling, there's philosophical stories and characters and stuff like that. So anything that we can do to help people get better, whether it be on any of those levels, that's what I feel that I can do the best. Because hell, I've carried my Jaysin Static character. I retired from wrestling in 2013. I haven't wrestled a match since 2013. But I've been able to keep my name and my buzz built off of being able to be the character and getting people emotionally connected to me. You know what I mean? So that's one of the things that I try to do different than everybody else. Is I think a lot of people, one of my guys, Reinar, character development. Character is absolutely one of the most important things in professional wrestling. Because if you don't have a character, it's going to be hard for people to grab onto you. You could be just the guy that is a hardcore wrestler that's very damn good, but do people actually follow you instead of just go, hey, you're the good wrestler guy? There's many of those guys in history that we can name out there that we look back and we go, yes, their fucking work rate was amazing, but yeah, that's it. And that's the unfortunate thing. I just wish more people would think more about their character and the development and the presentation of wrestling, because that helps. And that's going to help any indie show, no matter if you're the lowest guy on the card or the top guy on the card. Your character presentation from start to finish, from the minute that you step out of your vehicle to the minute that you get back in your vehicle and back on the road.
Yep.
Presentation is everything. Carry yourself like a professional, do the business good, respect the business, respect the people in it. And that's plain and simple. That's what I try to do. And that's what I literally beat into my guys, is respect and all that.
Wow.
I'm sorry, man. I like to talk.
Hey,
No, you're
I'm
fine.
not saying it's like I said, you've encapsulated a lot of what myself, Chris Rodell, and countless others who have paved the way. And again, when you talked earlier about guys like a Philly Blunt, like a John Blackheart, I mean, and John Blackheart many, many years ago taught me inside the squared circle. He's a man who's probably forgotten more about professional wrestling than most wrestlers ever learn. And again, to this day and time, anytime I talk about pro wrestling, John's always up at the top of the list. I know, like I said, I believe, too, thinking back to the Hall of Fame that Jim Harris is going to be putting on this year, the 2024, having the Blackheart Award. And this year, another name you and I are familiar with, Mr. Bibbs, being the recipient of that award. I mean, again, that shows the dedication, that shows the heart, that shows the drive that you have with your school and with your belief in professional wrestling. Now, Chris, I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to lay it on the line here. I have heard on a very good authority, Jaysin, that you, besides being, as you said earlier, a philosophical person, a knowledgeable professional athlete, I also know you're a little bit of a wrestling historian.
I try to be. I wouldn't say I'm the greatest at it, but like there's way better people than there's way more intelligent people out there than me. I watch a lot of wrestling stuff. I read a lot of wrestling books and stuff like that. So I try to do the best that I can, but I wouldn't say I'm the best at it.
Well, tell you what, one of the things we have here on the Wrestle Talk podcast is what's called the Wrestle Talk Podcast Game Show Challenge. And no, Chris, you can go ahead and throw me back in the middle here.
Sorry.
Because right now, it's going to make it work perfectly, because tonight right here, I'm going to level with you, Jaysin. If you're willing to participate, Our broadcast colleague here, Chris Rodell, also considers himself to be a knowledgeable individual of the world of professional wrestling. So, are you willing to participate in tonight's Wrestle Talk Podcast Game Show Challenge?
Let's try it.
All righty. Well, tell you what, to make this all work out, and Chris, I know that you got everything taken care of. You've been working hard all night long, and I have to throw this out here because if not, I'm going to get in trouble. This is particularly thrown at one Chris Rodell.
Snitch, you didn't participate in either game show challenge that when you were on the show. You left before both of them. So,
and that is true. We have that on file. If you want to go ahead and go back, we will find that and make sure that the snitch is made aware on that. But let's go ahead and just to make everything work right, let's go ahead and get us in the mindset of the game show challenge. Let's go ahead and get us some game show challenge music. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week's installment of the Wrestle Talk Podcast Game Show Challenge. Tonight's contest is scheduled for the best 2 out of 3 falls. Our competitors are the Wrestle Talk Podcast own Big Sexy Chris Rodell and Jaysin Static. In a few moments, gentlemen, tonight I'm going to give you information about 3 particular wrestlers in a particular wrestling category. When you think you know the answer, you shout out your answer. First one to win 2 out of 3 falls will win tonight's game show challenge. Tonight, in honor of the legacy of one Jaysin Static, tonight's Wrestle Talk Podcast Game Show Challenge category is going to be the Cruiserweight Classic.
Okay.
All the wrestlers that I'm going to give you information on are going to be individuals that competed in the WWE Cruiserweight Classic. Once again, when you think you know the answer, shout it out. First one to get 2 out of 3 questions correct will win tonight's challenge. Jaysin, being the challenger here this evening, are you ready?
I guess I'm gonna start off by saying this. I've been hitting my head a lot, okay? So I forget names. Ask any of my guys that are in the chat. I forget names, okay? So I'm going to give them my best damn shot.
All righty. Chris, are you ready?
Yeah. I mean, he's not wrong. I forget names too, and I don't think I've ever been hit in the head.
Yeah, we've all been in the wrestling business far too long. We've had a few moments with the brain cells having some issues, so we're going to go ahead and get things going. All righty, gentlemen, here we go. Our first fall of the evening. This gentleman competed in the Cruiserweight Classic. He moved on to countless different roles within the WWE, including being a former 24/7 champion. Currently, you can see him as a part of the Alpha Academy. Name it.
Tozawa.
That is correct. Chris Rodell with the first fall. It was Akira Tozawa. Like I say, we're 1 fall to none, Chris. Chris, are you ready for fall number 2?
Yep.
Jaysin?
Yes.
All righty. Number 2. This individual was in the Cruiserweight Classic. He has moved on to set the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling on fire. Most notably, teaming with Kenny Omega. Name him.
Sabre? Zack Sabre
No.
Jr.?
No, not Zack Sabre Jr.
He did. Was he? No.
Oh, what's his name?
To add a little more to it, his tag team was the Golden Lovers.
Bushi? Kota Ibushi?
Kota Ibushi is correct.
I couldn't think of his name. I wanted to say Okada, but I knew that wasn't right.
Wasn't Sabre in the
Sabre
was in the tournament as well. Now, gentlemen.
He did team with Omega.
Correct.
At one
But
point
in the case of what was there,
Right.
the primary tag team partner was Kota Ibushi. Now, gentlemen, it's 1 fall apiece. Just like any great wrestling matchup, it's all now time for the third and deciding fall. Jaysin, are you ready?
Yep.
Chris, are you ready?
Yep, I'm getting my brain turned on.
All right, here we go, gentlemen. The third and deciding fall. These individuals both competed in the Cruiserweight Classic. They moved on to NXT and the WWE, both as opponents, and currently the tag team on Raw, known as DIY. Name them both.
Ciampa and Gargano.
Ciampa and Gargano is correct. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's winner of the Wrestle Talk Podcast Game Show Challenge is Big Sexy Chris Rodell.
You want to hear another little tidbit about Tozawa? Tozawa was a local guy.
That is true.
Mhm.
It's true. He did compete. A matter of fact, he competed in St. Louis Anarchy, I do believe. Yeah, very good point.
Ciampa's been through St. Louis too a couple times. Yep. I mean,
yep, through WLW.
Yeah.
So, well, like I said, I'm going to say right now, first of all, Jaysin. Oh, okay, we got to go back here.
Reinar, you're going to get.
We're just going to leave that one there. I know this may not bode well.
Respectful shit.
Make him do like 50 bumps or make him run the ropes for like 30 minutes straight.
500 hack squats.
I remember those back in the day. I remember those. Well, ladies and gentlemen, before we let you go, Jaysin, I want to go ahead and give you just a minute here. For those that want to know more about your school and everything that goes on, let's go ahead and share with the viewers of the Wrestle Talk podcast, not only more about the Academy, but let's go ahead and if there's anywhere they can catch you on social media or website or anything like that, to make it a point, the Fight Club Academy, so they can know where to get this great wrestling training that's available to them.
Best place that you can find me is here on my Facebook, Jaysin Static. I got a Facebook fan page. You can catch me on there. Fight Club. We have our own Facebook page on there. Fight Club Wrestling Academy on Facebook. We'll be the only ones there. Make sure you spell Jaysin with a Jaysin, not JSON, like these guys here on this podcast did. But yeah, that's where you can find us. A lot more info coming out soon. We're getting ready to actually, I'm getting ready to go sign the paperwork today or not today, but this week for the building. So we're hopefully what I'm shooting for is maybe a March open sometime, maybe. I'm not real sure how that's going to work out yet, but that's what I'm shooting for.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you heard right here from Jaysin Static, the man behind the Fight Club Wrestling Academy. Jaysin, I got to tell you, having been in many different locker rooms with you, it's always an honor and a privilege to have you here. And again, we're going to throw one more comment out here before we go. Again, very nice recommendation. FCWA is coming. Maybe the opportunity of taking care of some things here. Jaysin, I want to say officially welcome to the Wrestle Talk podcast family.
And the one thing he didn't mention was his 138, his pop culture collection and wrestling collection. I think you can find it on eBay, right?
Yeah, eBay. I got my own eBay store. I also got a website, weare138co.com, where you can buy shirts like this. You can buy all my merchandise, all my Jaysin Static t-shirts, all the Fight Club Wrestling Academy t-shirts. I want to give a big shout out to all my guys. They're all rocking and rolling here in the chat. Eagle Eye, Rixer, Reinar, Jerry Morgan, Triple T, all you guys. Much love, much respect to all you guys. Thank you guys for doing what I'm, helping me do what I do so I can help you guys do what you want to do. So, and I want to thank you guys for, hopping on here and coming down. And you guys are more than welcome to come down and maybe shoot a live podcast from the home of FCWA when we get that podcast studio set up in the future.
Nice.
And you know what, Jaysin? I'm going to tell you right now, we've had an opportunity. We've been to KCXW. Maybe we need to make that journey down there. We've had our events live in Kansas City. Why not have them live here in St. Louis through FCWA?
I appreciate it, man.
All right, Jaysin. All right. Thanks for coming in. I hope to see you down the road.
I definitely will. I'll be around.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Yep.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Jaysin Static of Fight Club Wrestling Academy right here on the Wrestle Talk podcast. I got to tell you, Chris, I was looking forward to this interview. Tonight was a great night here on the Wrestle Talk podcast. And I think, honestly, Jaysin Static was the cherry on top of a great night of professional wrestling talk.
It was a good night. We had the return of Big Daddy P to the Wrestle Talk podcast. We talked some good wrestling earlier, and it's good. It's just I think we need to leave it on a positive site.
I agree with you. But before we do, we got to make sure one more time we talk about all those great sponsors. We can go ahead and bring them up here right now on the screen. Wrestle Talk Podcast. I'd like to thank all of our great sponsors. Royal Mills Transportation. If you need transportation in the Kansas City area, check with our guy, DeJuan Mills, the CEO. He'll get you around town. Nobleman's Barber Lounge, Kansas City. Kincaid Arcade at the Oak Park Mall. Our great friends over at Interstate 70 Sports Media. Little Popeye Designs. You want to go to those great Wrestle Talk Podcast tumblers. They are available. And, of course, the FWWC, the world's premier fantasy wrestling group. You can catch them every Thursday night on all of our great media outlets. Chris, I got to tell you, from top to bottom, a great night of professional wrestling talk. And for those of you that have been watching the show, just as a reminder here, and again, we're going to bring one last thing before we put on a reminder. As you're well aware, the 2024 St. Louis Independent Wrestling Hall of Fame will be announced soon. We're hoping that Jim Harris, again, longtime supporter of the Wrestle Talk podcast, will be able to announce that here in the weeks to come. Also, as a reminder, for those of you that have enjoyed the Wrestle Talk podcast, just a few days ago, we had Pinky Shortcake and Psycho on the Wrestle Talk podcast. As a matter of fact, tonight, it's going on right now as we speak. Big Little Brawlers having their season finale on Discovery. You can check out all the great wrestlers. You can check out Pinky Shortcake. You can check out Psycho. You can check out Jay Amazing, Andrew the Giant, our good friend Ivar the Micro. And, of course, they're going to be talking about that big cage match between Little Show and Hot Rod, making it a point talking about Microfest being available. And it's actually being broadcast right now on Discovery. You can also get it on Max as well. I believe it's HBO Max Plus. You can get that taken care of. Chris, from top to bottom, a great show.
All right, Luke,
here.
Luke, bring it on home. I'll see you guys all next week.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the great people here behind the Wrestle Talk podcast, I want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in this week. Make it a point to check us out on all social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Check it out, Wrestle Talk podcast. We look forward to seeing you right back here next Tuesday evening, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, for the best in professional wrestling talk, news, interviews, and so much more. The Wrestle Talk podcast. Take care, and we'll see you next week